Our talking point this evening. College admissions are fraught with challenges on multiple counts. Another layer of complications has been added this year with CUET, which is the common test for all admissions across the country. And then the venerable St. Stephen's College decided to go ahead and challenge CUET rules. Essentially, St. Stephen's wants to interview students before they take them in. Interviews can make or break your chances at the premier college. Anyone who's applied there will know this. But UGC rules are very clear. Government of India rules are very clear. Only CUET scores will count. The matter reached court, and the Delhi High Court has now made it clear that the college, that is St. Stephen's, cannot hold any interviews for general category students. Does this violate Article 330 that gives minorities the right to establish and administer educational institutions? Or do minority institutions, especially the ones funded by UGC, like St. Stephen's, need to follow government policies, in this case, national scores? To talk about that, we have a panel that is joining us. We have Konika Poddar, who's the petitioner in this case. Konika, thank you very much. Interestingly, she's not someone who was applying for admission to St. Stephen's College. She's a law student, and in fact, this is something that came up in court as well as to why she's applying or why she has filed this petition. I'm going to speak to her as well. Hi, Konika. Good to have you here.
Hello,
Akash, hi. Akash Vajpai is the lawyer who fought on behalf of Konika. Akash, thank you very much. Furqan Kamar is a former advisor and from the Planning Commission of India, specifically used to deal with education. He is joining us as well on the show. And Nandita Narain is an associate professor at St. Stephen's College. She joins us in the show as well. Konika, I'm going to come to you first. And I come to you with this question because this question was asked in court as well. As to your motives for filing this PIL, Konika Poddar is a law student. She's not someone who is seeking admission into St. Stephen's College. Then why did you drag the college to court?
My main motive is to student welfare. And the Delhi University and the St. Stephen College, these two big institutions were fighting for the admission process of the undergraduate course, and the number of the students will suffer, and it's just a big issue. So I filed the PIL for the welfare of the student, and the decision has come in the favor of the student.
The decision, Akash, has come in the favor of students, says Konika. Help me understand what the arguments were that were made in court, because there are two Supreme Court judgments that were cited in court today that very clearly in the past have given St. Stephen's College, which is a minority college, but it's an aided college, the right to hold interviews before admitting students in. They have often argued, look at the number of people who apply to our college and look at the number of seats we have. How do we choose the best for ourselves? The way we can choose the best for ourselves is calling people in for an interview, determining whether they are good enough for the college, and then giving them admission. What's the harm?
Yes, absolutely. So the first question I would answer first. What kind of arguments was made before the court? See, in 1992, when the St. Stephen's judgment had been passed by the Supreme Court, there were two issues. Whether the St. Stephen's is a minority institution, or the second issue was, can the St. Stephen's be allowed for conducting an interview for the students at the time of admission? So the judgment was given on a different facts. That time there was no reservation for the Christian students in the St. Stephen's. Plus, there were a different boards which used to take a different exam. So the Supreme Court had given a judgment on the basis that because St. Stephen's is a minority institution, so protecting the color of the minority institution, interview is necessary. The second thing, because there were different boards, UP board give a different, has a different kind of methodology for giving exam. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they have a different type of giving marks. So that's why the court has given this concession to the St. Stephen's that they can take admission and they can give a platform where they can equalize all the marks received by different boards by the different students. But now the situation has changed. Now the situation has changed because St. Stephen's is already giving a reservation to the extent of 50% to the Christian students. So there is no question that St. Stephen's is losing its minority status. The first thing, it was not in the earlier case. The second thing is now because CUET is giving an equal platform to all the students from the UP, students from the Bihar, students from the Tamil Nadu, Nagaland, they all be given the same exam. So there's no different kind of marks. So
Okay.
that's why Delhi High Court differentiated this old St. Stephen's judgment and given a verdict that Article 30, which gives which gives a privilege to minority institution to run their own college. They said that because now it's a minority institution, they are not losing color. So that's why they said that this Supreme Court judgment is different.
You know,
The
Article
second-
30, give me a moment here. Article 30 has been quoted in court today, and I just want to read for our viewers why, one of the things that St. Stephen's legal counsels were depending on was Article 30 and the two judgments, that are being mentioned there by Akash. Also, just to tell our viewers that, on behalf of St. Stephen's College, Kapil Sibbal is the one who appeared. We sent an invite to his team to come and join the debate. They declined. I just wanted to put it out there. Speaking of Article 30, I'm just reading out what Article 30 essentially means. It says the right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. It also goes on to say that all minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. Furqan Kamar, I just also want to make it clear that the court has said that you can admit, students of the Christian community, which is 50%, whichever way you feel like. If you want to interview them, you go ahead and you interview them. But general category students who will form 50% of your student base, they cannot be interviewed. I want to ask you where you stand on this entire interview process, because, CUET, yes, will give you a national score, but will it necessarily tell you whether the student will fit into the culture of the college?
Thank you, Shreya, for having me in your program. I would like to take the debate a little farther from what you have been discussing. Minority issues and the right of minorities to establish institutions and to admit students is one very important thing. But there has been one idea for a long time associated with modern universities, and that is the idea of autonomy of higher educational institutions. And the academic autonomy includes the right to admit students and to decide that what should be the criteria for admitting students, whom to teach, is one of the fundamental rights of the as far as the autonomy is concerned, academic autonomy is concerned. Now, multiple choice objective type tests do not necessarily test everything, do not necessarily provide you the best of the best. Yes, I would agree with you that the CUET may provide a score, but CUET itself has a kind of bias. The bias is that the syllabus is based on CBSE, while the students from across different boards are taking these examinations, and therefore those students are already to some disadvantage who are not from CBSE. That issue aside, the interview provides an opportunity to assess a candidate in a holistic manner. Now, I agree with you that an objective score coming out of an entrance test is objective. It cannot be tampered with, and therefore there is no scope of any discretion, while interview is a subjective process where subjective decisions are involved. Now, it depends on what do you assume. If you assume that everybody sitting on the interview board is biased and they want to give favor, they want to victimize certain communities, then God bless you. That doesn't always happen. The essential idea is that you see through the interview that the candidate actually performs what the CUET score and the academic results of that students are there. I think from that point of view, the St. Stephen's has been conducting these interviews for a long time.
Correct.
Even when Delhi University was, as all colleges were admitting students on the basis of the merit. St. Stephen's has established a brand. I would like to say that those institutions which have established a name for themselves, they are considered to be of quality. I think they need to be allowed the possibility of doing better. rather than subjecting them to a uniform code, to a common code, because those things, in fact, pull down institutions to a lowest common denominator.
But Nandita Narain, you're an associate professor at St. Stephen's College. Will that not qualify as snobbery? Why do you need an interview if you have national scores, will be the question that will be asked. Here are students who have been evaluated by the government of India. You have the scores. What do you need an interview for? Is it to check whether the student can
I just
speak?
want to make it clear, first of all, that I'm totally not in favor of this CUET, replacing the school exam altogether. But be that as it may, this is something that has happened to the entire university, and all colleges are going to, in some sense, suffer, because the kind of critical thinking and the aptitude for reading and writing that you can get from, a sum total of a large number of exams that they have done is not something that you're going to be able to detect from a multiple choice question format. So even so, this is something that we have to resist together at the university level. But when it comes to St. Stephen's College, we have had since 1992, as was pointed out, been given the right by the Supreme Court to have interviews for admission. And at that time, the Supreme Court had observed that this is conducted by teachers, and therefore it has an academic basis. In the interview, we would test students from different boards for their reading and writing and reasoning skills, which you don't always get an idea of from the school leaving exam. And we would also look at their total personality, because we don't have a separate quota for extracurricular activities. We have a sports quota, but we don't have an ECA quota. So in the interview, all those other extracurricular dimensions and the overall personality was also looked at. We also, in some cases, had the freedom to give deprivation points, that is, give some weightage to students coming from marginalized backgrounds. So that is what the logic was then. But I must say that speaking only for myself, over a period of time, the say of the department in the interview had got reduced from 2 out of 3 to 2 out of 4. We already have a case going on in court. I am a petitioner along with 2 other teachers, challenging a decision that was taken to include a governing body member in the interview process, which we thought was not an academically viable decision. So for myself, speaking personally, I think at this point of time, we need to go along with the university, and we don't, and with all the other colleges. And I'm personally now not in favor of separate interviews. But I do think that both for Christians and non-Christian students, we should not have interviews, because even in the interviews for Christian students, over a period of time, we have found that just too many questions about the scriptures are asked rather than about the subject to which they are being admitted. And I think that is not fair. They should be evaluated on what is normally called merit, that is the aptitude for the subject for which they have applied.
Okay, Nandita, you've made your position very clear, and I'm glad it's a nuanced position. But I want to ask you this, since you're representing St. Stephen's College in a way in this debate.
Stephen's College in this, I'm only representing myself.
Okay, so here's the question. The fact is that St. Stephen's College has admitted students based on, of course, what they have scored in their examination in class 12, but also largely, to a large extent, based on how they have performed in interviews. And what exactly is it that you're looking in interviews? You're looking at how the student speaks English, how the student conducts himself or herself, and where they come from, who their parents are, what the pedigree is, etc. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the general impression. My question to you is this: if the government of India has mandated that CUET will give you a general score, so even if a student who is coming to St. Stephen's doesn't speak, as they call, Faratedar English, or doesn't come from a privileged background or a family, if he has the scores, if he has the marks, he or she has the marks, should it not just be enough? Why is that not enough is the question.
Well, yes and no. I would say that, this presumption that we're only looking at how well they speak English is, a little misplaced. I have been part of many boards, and while I agree with you that, yes, it is there's a certain leeway being given to St. Stephen's all these years, and that was given by the Supreme Court. And it might seem a little unfair, but I must tell you that teachers, by and large, have tried very seriously not to let biases creep in of class and background, and also would like to know whether the student is really interested in the subject. You may have very high marks, but you may not really want to study the subject. You've got admission, so you take it. And you come with high marks in a particular discipline, in a particular field, but you've applied for admission to another course. So we want to know whether you read beyond the curriculum. We want to know whether you think about what you're reading. We want to know what is your worldview, whether you are going to, you have certain set of, basic values. We don't expect them to come with everything. Of course, what are we there for? We are there to also expose them to the set of values which we would like them to imbibe. But a certain basic aptitude for the subject, interest in reading, reasoning skills which you need particularly in the sciences and mathematics. Our mathematics in college is very different from the mathematics they did in school. And the aptitude is not always the same. And then we also talk about their extracurricular activities. We even sometimes make them sing songs. We look at all their certificates. We, talk about their other skills and talents. So it was not just.
Okay, I think we've lost the audio.
Biases do creep in. I mean, we're all human. So in that sense, I would, at this point of time, say that let us go with the university. I don't think that we should have unilaterally put it into a prospectus in defiance of the university.
Okay. So, Nandita, that's your stand. But Furqan Kamar, here's the thing. It can always be argued that if other colleges were doing okay without an interview and admitting students, fairly decent students and eligible students without the interview, why St. Stephen's special? No, after all, though it's a minority institution, let's not forget that it's aided by the UGC.
No, I already said that I'm not bringing in this minority character of the institution in this debate from my side. Nandita is an insider to the college and she knows the processes. For some reason, she is not in favor of the interview, although she sees merit in the conducting of interviews. First of all, the CUET or one single entrance test does not test all abilities of these students. Second, applying the same uniform rules across all institutions in the country would, rather than improving the quality, would in fact pull down the quality.
But it would be so confusing for a student.
It could be, but on the one hand, we are aspiring to become world-class universities, world-class higher educational institutions, and we have to see that what are the methods and the practices that they are following. If there are issues of ethics and integrity in the committee members who are conducting interviews, that need to be addressed. I think the system must permit individual innovations, individual separate ways of admitting students and having the pedagogy, etc. Ideally, the Delhi University itself should have said that, one single central university entrance test may or may not serve the purpose. This being the very first year at this large scale, we do not know how reliable the data would be. The CUET for about 10 or 12 universities were conducted before, 2 years by NTA and earlier by respective universities. In none of the years, they have released the data on the consistency, reliability, and validity of those tests. So in this backdrop, if there are 15% weightages given to some kind of interview, I think that should have been welcome, particularly by a college which is cited as an example for producing quality graduates who are bringing in laurel to the country.
If that is the case, Akash Vajpai, A, do you see the matter, going to the Supreme Court, A? And B, very importantly, if we take the argument that Furqan Kamar is making, then, every college, Mr. Kamar, and I'll come to you with this as well, every college will say, we'll do our own thing. St. Stephen's will say one thing, Hindu College will say one thing, LSR will say another thing. I mean, if admission criteria are going to be different for all colleges, can you imagine the sort of nightmare this will become for students, sir?
I know, you are absolutely right. First question, I'm not sure if they are going to Supreme Court. They might go, they might not. It's their choice, so I can't comment on that. Second thing, I just want to give you an example. I mean, we are talking about the Article 30. St. Stephen's judgment, which was pronounced, was 5 judges bench judgment. Now, TMFI judgment, which was a 11 judges judgment, it has very categorically has said that minority institution like St. Stephen's has a right to take admission only on the 50% seats. Rest of the 50%, there shall be a common entrance test and a counseling. They never mention about the interview. And the court has also specifically said in TMFI judgment that we cannot left admission process on the whim and fancy of the minority institution. Minority institution, if they are affiliated with the university, they have to follow the guidelines of the university. They cannot say that because we are the minority institution, so although I am taking a fund from the UGC, I am affiliated with the university, I will not follow your admission policy. Third, I can give you example like Shri Ram College, Lady Shri Ram College, Hindu College, or even I can give the example of IITs. They don't have a concept of an interview, but they are the premier institution. AIMS, they don't take an interview, but the AIMS is the premier institution. So saying that by interview they maintain the culture and ethos of the college, I think that's taking a thing to a different extent. And the fourth thing which I want to say, that the ex-principal of the college specifically made the allegation that when he was the principal, so some pressure was made on him to take students of that person's choice. So it's also said that the interview process is not completely impartial. So there were allegations against this interview process. Now, on your question, that's true. If the St. Stephen's is going to start taking the interview, then the other minority college will say that we will also take an interview. So that's why court has given, when in the national interest, because there was a judgment of the Supreme Court Christian Medical College. In that Supreme Court judgment, they challenged the common entrance test examination for the medical college. So Supreme Court has categorically said that in the national interest, we are allowing the common entrance test. There will be no separate interview or other exam apart from the common entrance test, because taking admission on the basis of the merit is a national interest. So that's why for maintaining the national interest, common entrance test is must.
Okay, all right. Nandita Narain, I'll give you the last word. Would you want to respond to what Akash is saying? That you're talking about maintaining
a small, I mean, maybe it's my own understanding. I read the TMA5 judgment very carefully, the 11th judge bench. And I think that from what I could make out, it had upheld the 1992 St. Stephen's College versus Delhi University judgment. It had not countered that. And in fact, we've stuck to 50%, but we could have gone beyond 50%. To speak on behalf of the college, we have also voluntarily given 10% admission to non-Christian SC and ST, non-Christian, students. So, which is something the law did not insist on. I think all of that will be thrown out. I don't think we should throw out the baby with the bathwater. And the good things that St. Stephen's has tried to do, which went beyond the call of legal requirement, should be retained. Overall, yes, I agree at this point of time for a variety of reasons. I do feel that we should go along with the other colleges in the university, and we do not need to have a separate interview criterion. I also want to point out that we had a written test as well. Out of 15 marks, we had 5 marks for a written test to make it more transparent and, less, what people might think arbitrary. But there is a certain amount of arbitrariness will come in when you have to judge, teachers have to judge a person's reading, writing, reasoning skills. That is inherent in this. We are a very old college. We're much older than Delhi University. Delhi University came in 1922. We have been there since 1881. And we have had, these practices have been there for 140 years. Even despite that, I think I would not like to accept all the kind of allegations made against the interview process and against teachers who have been conducting these to the best of their ability. But on the whole, I feel at this point of time, we should give up interviews both for Christians as well as non-Christians.
Okay, Furqan Kamar, last word to you. Akash Vajpai is saying that if an interview really decided the merit of a student, fact is that IIT doesn't conduct interviews and they are a world-class institution.
Interview does not decide in that sense because it has only a weightage of about 15%.
That's a lot. That's a lot given the competitive environment we live in.
That could appear to be a lot, given that there is a neck-to-neck competition. IIT's example that you are giving, they are all one kind of programs, all engineering programs, very few programs other than engineering, although they are diversifying now. But even in IITs for programs like MBAs, they do conduct interviews. IIMs have actually earlier been conducting group discussions and interviews.
Correct.
Is still being conducted. I see a global picture. Look at any of the top 100 universities of the world and you go through the process of admission and you will find that despite all GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS, they do have a holistic way of selecting. I can cite one of the Ivy League university where a committee of 5 teachers decide that, okay, a student makes in or doesn't for admission. Now, the only question is that if people are challenging about the ethics and integrity of the interview committee, I think we need to find out that to what extent the unethical behaviors are influencing the decisions. And then there should be check and balance. But putting a total ban and imposing a simple, single, common kind of test is not in the best interest of promoting quality in higher education.
Okay, we'll leave it there. This has been an enlightening conversation. Thank you very much, Konika Poddar, for joining us, Akash Vajpai, Furqan Kamar, and Nandita Narain. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us here on The Urban Debate. We are now